Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Celine and today I'm going to be talking about my pile of possibilities for the wonderful booktube event that is called Victober. As you can probably tell from the name, Victober simply means Victorian reading during October. So this is a great event that's being hosted by 4 YouTubers and I will put their information and channels down below. And they have also provided us with a couple of prompts. Now, in terms of my own reading, I just like to go with the flow. I usually just choose my next read based on vibes. So in this video, I'm just going to show you a bunch of books. I will most definitely not read all of these in October. This is just a pile of books. This is just some of the Victorian fiction that I have that I would be interested in reading in October. And I'm sure I will pick up some of them, but you'll see I will not be able to read all of this. Because, for example, the first book I have is Bleak House by Charles Dickens. I've had this book for a couple of years and I have to say, a couple of years ago I read Oliver Twist and I don't really like Oliver Twist. I do like some of Dickens' other works. I like A Tale of Two Cities. I quite enjoyed Great Expectations as well. But Oliver Twist kind of put me off reading Dickens for a while. But I feel like I have now digested that trauma and I think I'm ready, or I'm getting close to being ready, to actually tackling Bleak House. It's also been very helpful that some people in the comments have told me that even though they also didn't like Oliver Twist, they did really like Bleak House and that it's seen as one of Dickens's better books. However, of course, the size does still put me off a little bit, and unfortunately this edition I have, the font is just incredibly small, so I'm not sure this is going to be a very comfortable reading experience. If I do start this book during the month of October, I think I might have to resort to using an e-reader just so I don't have to carry this massive book around. The next book I have is Villette by Charlotte Bronte. Now, I read a different book by Charlotte Bronte called Shirley last year, and I have very mixed feelings about Shirley. I loved the first half and then had some issues with the second half. But still, I do think Charlotte Bronte is an excellent writer. I have, of course, read the very famous Jane Eyre. So I'm slowly working my way through Charlotte Bronte's back catalogue, and I think this one is up next. The only thing I know about it is I think it's about a governess who is placed with a family in Brussels. And I like the idea of having a non-England setting. So I hope that I remember that right and that that is actually the setting of this book. But I really look forward to this. Moving on to one of her sisters, I also have this little collection of poetry by Emily Bronte and it's called The Night is Darkening Around Me. Now, I don't really read a ton of poetry, but this collection sounded interesting. It says, Bronte's most passionate, powerful poems on death, nature's beauty and the passage of time. So that does sound quite interesting, and it might be nice to have something small to break up some of those massive Victorian chonkers. Next up, I also have one of the Victober favourites, an author that I think quite a lot of people read during Victober, and that is Wilkie Collins, and the book that I have is No Name. I'm actually currently reading The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. I'm in the last 100 pages, so you know, don't tell me how it ends. But what I like about Wilkie Collins is that he writes quite page-turnery books. So I don't even really know what No Name is actually about, and I don't even really want to know. I went into The Moonstone pretty blind, just knowing that it was about some gem that gets stolen, and I just want to go into No Name knowing nothing. Just allow myself to be amused by Wilkie Collins's twists and turns. I would also say that on a prose level, I really do think Wilkie Collins is quite easy to read, especially compared to some of the other Victorian novelists. He doesn't quite have that same tendency to just start writing a sentence and then just not stop the sentence for half a page. Which, as much as I like Dickens, he does have a tendency to sometimes just, you know, who needs a full stop? Next up, I also have Mary Barton by Elizabeth Gaskell. I actually recently finished reading one of Gaskell's books. I read North and South, which is probably her most famous work. And I filmed a standalone video for that, so you can look forward to that. I think it will appear on the channel about 2 weeks after this video. But I really enjoyed North and South, and I look forward to exploring a bit more about Gaskell's work. Mary Barton is, I think, her first novel, so I'm curious to see how it compares. I did start reading this years ago, and there's still a bookmark in it, but as you can see, I didn't get very far. So I look forward to, you know, having a renewed appreciation of her work to dive into this one again. Then a book that I am quite drawn to at the moment, so this might be one of the ones that I do read, and that is George Gissing's New Grub Street. This is a late Victorian novel, I think it's from the 1890s, and it deals with the publishing industry, and I think particularly sort of the hack publishing industries, you know, the type where Victorian writers would just write huge amounts in order to try to make a living. As someone who would also, in an ideal world, would like to make a living out of writing, I find that quite fascinating. Honestly, anything about writers is basically something I would probably want to read. So I'm feeling like maybe New Grub Street will be the one book that I tackle this October. Continuing on to my list of maybes, I also have Thomas Hardy Far from the Madding Crowd. I actually have a whole stack of Thomas Hardys now. They will be shown off in a book haul that I will post shortly, probably sometime this month. This is the one that I think I will start with, although if you think I should start with a different Thomas Hardy, do, you know, let me know in the comments. And I should say that with the caveat that I'm not a huge reader of tragedies, and I know some of his works are quite grim. But the plot of this one is that there is one young lady and she has 3 suitors vying for her heart, and she will probably have to make some sort of choice. Because of course, you know, it's the Victorian era, we're not going to end up with a polycule. So it sounds like this book might be the one to ease me into Thomas Hardy's work. Then I would also like to read something by Oscar Wilde. So in this pile I have the complete short stories. I might also read some of his plays. I do have a collection of his plays. I really love Oscar Wilde. I love the richness of his prose. I also quite enjoy his cynical tone. And I have, of course, read The Picture of Dorian Gray, which is one of my all-time favourites. I've also reread it several times. So I think I would like to focus on some of his other works at this point. And I haven't really read any of his short fiction before. I actually I already owned this book, but it was at my mum's house, so I completely forgot about its existence, and now I bought it for a second time. So I feel like I should probably read it. So I hope to maybe pick up a couple of short stories from this collection during the month of October. And then finally a book that would be a reread for me, and that is Carmilla, which is by Sheridan le Fanu. This short little novella is about a female vampire, and it was written before Dracula. If you really like gloomy, gothic, atmospheric, you know, if you really want the Halloween vibes this October, I quite recommend Carmilla. It's been several years since I last read it, so the details are very hazy now. I do remember very much enjoying this, and because it's so short, I really feel like I should just reread this. So those are some of the books that I have in my pile of possibilities. I feel like I have a broad range of things to choose from this Victober. Do let me know if you have read any of these books, if you recommend some of them, if you don't recommend some of them. Do also let me know if you are planning to participate in Victober, you know, whether you are planning to read any kind of Victorian read. I would love to know. In any case, I hope you're doing well, and I hope to see you again soon in another video. Bye!